I would like to now invite Sapan founder curator, Beena Sarwar, to give us an overview and take us through what Sapan has done for over the last 2 years. So, Beena, over to you.
Thank you so much, Khushi. It's wonderful to be here. Wonderful to see so many old and new friends that are on this journey with us. I'm going to go very briefly through the journey we've been through together for the past couple of years, and I can't believe it's been 2 years, and I'm really thrilled and happy to welcome all of you. So I'm going to see if I can do. Wait, I need to share my screen just to get the thing. And yeah, so the Sapan story. I'm going to just go a little bit over the Sapan story. Which in a way goes back to my father, to lessons I learned from my father, from a movement he led in the 1950s, long before I was born, and continues years after he passed away in 2009. From my conversations with him and from the research I did after he passed, I learned some lessons from the Democratic Students Federation, which I bring to this movement called Sapan. I just want to say that after my father passed on, we commemorated the movement in the next year. And we were organizing the event, which had for about 1,000 people at the Karachi Arts Council. And I asked his mentor, Uncle Eric Rahim, the economist in Glasgow now. And Uncle Eric said, and I said, why do we need to do this? Why are we doing this, looking back and all that? And Uncle Eric said, we look back to look forward. So in a way, I've carried that mantra with me. And some of the lessons I have from that movement are the importance of uniting for a minimum common agenda, to collaborate across the ideological divides for a larger goal, to be proactive rather than reactive, forging our own narrative, to be inclusive and keep party politics out of the movement, to take a holistic approach to realize that everything is connected. You know, in Sapan, we've done art, sports, culture, politics, economics, health, everything is connected, and we are all connected. And the importance of documentation and organization. So one of the images that I came across when I was looking for this idea I had about Sapan was that it's this orb, transparent orb with nodes all around it and inside it, and then they're all connected. So I found this image on the net. It doesn't quite convey what I wanted because the lines are very angular, and my idea of Sapan is much more fluid. It's fluid, and it's, as Kanak Dixit, one of my mentors and the founding editor of Himal South Asia says, you know, we want a penumbra, you know, of like the soft shadows of the moon, rather than harsh binary binaries. So Sapan, this is the symbol that I came up with, but the logo, of course, as you see, is a beautiful one that designed by Hamid in Vancouver. And we've been doing various monthly events, and I will take us to the website, the Sapan website, where which if you go to that, SouthasiaPeace.com, and to the events. So our very first event was cross-border empathy and cooperation in the time of COVID, which actually was supposed to be about it was, as you can see, Rajdeep Sardesai is there, and we have Sharda and other sports personalities, Afia. And it was supposed to be called Khelne Do, you know, meet sports for peace. But because of the COVID situation at that time, as you all remember, it was just really very traumatic. And everybody was, we were so traumatized. So we converted that event into, you know, sharing empathy and solidarity across the border. I'll share some more of the events that we did. And anybody can go to the website Southasia Peace and see. So then the next one also was, oh, sorry. The next one was also about COVID, South Asian solidarity in the time of COVID, sharing grief, inspiration, tragedies. And, you know, one of the things you can see maybe Karamat's thumbnail in the first one, and he was grieving Karamat Ali in Karachi because his wife in Delhi had COVID, and her sister, and he couldn't go over because of COVID. We had, you know, we talked about the importance of public health. We had this wonderful event with women and sport challenges and wins that you can see some very well-known names were there. Khalida Popal from Afghanistan, and, you know, a wrestler from Bangladesh, and, you know, a tennis player from Nepal, and a swimmer from Sri Lanka, and cricket players from India and Pakistan, squash, and all of that. So, and this was such an inspiring event, challenges and wins, and that kind of gave us a framework also for moving forward, that we don't just look at what our challenges are, but also what our wins are, how challenges bring us to wins. And then we have, and Najam Sethi, who was the closing speaker for that, suggested we do a book on that, on what the stories we got from that, which we still haven't done because we don't have the resources, quite frankly. We've done the rights of the incarcerated across South Asia, the prison conditions for which some of the people involved did some amazing research. We did the 2611, the impact on South Asia and South Asians, and Noam Chomsky dropped in, and we highlighted him in a separate little video that's there. We done work on climate change and gender violence, and the gender violence in South Asia for women, the Violence Against Women Month, Feminized to Humanize, a lovely title given by Lalita Ramdas, who we fondly called Lolly, one of the founding members of our group, along with her husband, the wonderful Admiral Ramdas. In December, we had the young people call on, for Human Rights Month, we had the young people call on the seniors to grow up, and we called about growing up and growing together. We talked about art and the artists in South Asia, and Salima Hashmi did a wonderful presentation, I remember, from that. And we had something on mystics and music, South Asia's legacy of love, and that's what we want to foreground at Sapan is love rather than hate. And we are not countering hate; we are being proactive with love. So, and then we had our yearly event last year. We had this wonderful event on labor rights and democracy, connecting workers across South Asia, labor rights unions, and particularly, I think, the very important issue for all across South Asia is the plight of sanitation workers. We had an event on road safety, South Asians for road safety, and I think Mridul Bhasin, if you are here in the group, if you could say a few words about that, because this event brought us together with Mridul Bhasin, who runs Muskan for road safety in Jaipur. If someone could spotlight Mridul, who I think is there, I saw her earlier. And if she's not, we can go back to the thing. Mridul, are you there? So the road safety.
Let me unmute. Okay, I have unmuted myself. Hi,
perfect.
Hello, right. Everybody. Can you hear me, Beena?
Yes. So yes, I just wanted you to say a few words, because as Sapan has grown, we are collaborating with other organizations, and one of the groups we are collaborating with is Mridul Bhasin's Muskan, and I wanted just her to say a few words about what this partnership means to her. Mridul?
This has been so wonderful, all friends and everybody here. And then we are talking to a group which is so conscious about peace and life and human rights and all. And when we got introduced to Sapan, it was really, really a lucky day for us, because a new chapter opened up in my life as such. And collaborating with all the South Asian friends who are leaders in their own zones. So when we started it, actually Kavita Srivastav and Beena are the people who basically initiated the whole thing, and I got active in this. I wish I had been more active in the group. So, but now we did a few things, like we celebrated Streets for Life, which is a call for, making the streets safer and more livable for people in South Asia. Then we wrote a letter to UN envoy, Mr. Todd, who's a special envoy for road safety. And all of us signed in it. And this letter went from the road safety group of Sapan, and which is a great initiative. And then we had coaxed all the members to write a letter to their own respective transport ministers, talking about Sapan Group's initiative about road safety. Then there was this Twitter space where Safi was very active and he talked about road safety. Then there was a little road safety song and all. And we celebrate, not celebrated, but observed World Day of Remembrance, which is a day day selected by United Nations to remember those who lost their lives on the roads. So
Sorry,
this was an
Mridul, I just want to
opportunity.
interrupt you here for a minute, because I just want to
Yeah.
acknowledge. I want to just acknowledge that as we worked on this road safety issue, please keep Mridul in the spotlight if she's still there. As we acknowledge the road safety issue, we realized how many people in our group had actually lost close family, friends, and members. And Mridul herself, I want to acknowledge, came into this cause because her own 17-year-old daughter at the time was knocked down and killed by a bus. So Mridul, we express our solidarity with you and with all those who've lost loved ones. I know Irfan's lost a brother, Fauzia has lost a brother, Sameer lost a close friend. And we talked, I think we also, an activist in Sri Lanka had been knocked down. There's so many people. So thank you so much, Mridul. Was there anything else you wanted? I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
No, thank you so much. This is so important.
Yeah, through the pain through your pain, you build something that will help other people, and that is what we try to do. This event also brought us together with people like the Helmet Man of India, Raghuvinder Kumar. I don't know if he's here right now, but and with Vivek Samuel in I think in Bangalore or Chennai, who, because of the road safety work that we were doing, he was called upon by the Delhi Transport Corporation to present his engineering solutions to prevent road crashes. So thank you so much, Mridul. I'll go back to.
I'll just would like to acknowledge that
Yes.
There were a few initiatives we wanted the group to start. One of them was having a road safety policy all over South Asian, countries, and take an initiative. Maybe we can talk about it later in the group. And I really whip myself for not being so
No, you're
active
doing
in the
so
group.
much. Please.
So
See, the
I
thing
think
about
we'll do more.
No. See, the thing about Sapan is because everybody has their own particular causes that they are deep diving into. And what we do is to bring everyone together, like I said earlier, like a penumbra, not pulling people together. So please do not ever feel guilty about not giving more time to Sapan. You're doing so much, and we will, hopefully the group that you and Dr. Fauzia Diba are coordinating will keep carrying on this work in what we call a sort of a drip irrigation, rather than carry on watering the plants and in the background. So I'm going to go back to the events. So we also partnered with the Boston South Asia Center here for the Kabir Festival. We did this really inspiring event called Right for Peace, and I think Mohsin and Lee are here, who I'll call on to say a few words about that. And this was such an amazing thing. Mohsin Tejani in Karachi and Lee Krishnan in Mumbai. So if you're there, Mohsin and Lee, I think you've already been highlighted. I don't know if Lee is there.
Lee's around. Yeah,
Perfect,
she's
lovely,
here.
lovely. Yes, lovely. Lee, you can. So if you can each take a minute to just share what your experience with working with Sapan and the work that you did.
Well, the experience of working with Sapan was amazing, and the idea behind this was to involve the families. The Sapan members, they're all involved in Sapan work, in their own work at their respective individual levels. But we offered this family literacy night entitled Right for Peace, in which we had families also join in. And we gave out very simple prompts to all the participants, and they wrote about, so like the first prompt was what peace looks like. And the second one was, I dream of a world. And the third prompt was at my table. So these three prompts were given, and everybody wrote on these prompts. And then we had like a public reading. Everybody shared their work. Lee, you want to add anything?
Always, Mohsin, to whatever you say. Mohsin and I
like this India-Pakistan cooperation. This is very nice. Our governments can learn from it.
I wish. So Mohsin and I have been friends for more than 25 years. We met in 1997, and we're still best friends. So it was amazing to do this workshop together for Sapan. And it's a unique concept of getting families to write together. And this, so when Mohsin broached the idea, I was more than happy to do it. And we had writing in, I think, 7 different languages. We had the rules for the end of a bread loaf in I think 7 different languages, read out in different languages. And what was amazing was that people wanted to share not just one prompt where we normally get people willing to read their writing for one prompt, but everybody wanted to read everything that they wrote. The chat was filled with stuff. And my memory that I will always take away is with Lalita joining in the singing of Imagine, which everybody did, and singing with so much passion. And I thought, yes, this is what peace looks like.
Yes, this is what peace looks like. And I want to acknowledge Payal in Boston, who took the writings and who has made it into into a virtual magazine kind of a thing. And other people also joined in afterwards. Sara Arshad in Lahore, who wasn't at the workshop, but who was a poet, also got very excited and got many people more to contribute who hadn't participated in the workshop. So hopefully that virtual magazine will be out sometime soon. So thank you so much, Lee and Krishnan, Lee and Mohsin, sorry. And I just want to say, speaking of families, because Mohsin is family to me because he is my mother's mentee, Zakia Sarwar of Spelt, and I think we get Lee and Mohsin through that network. And I'll go back to sharing my screen because I don't want to I want to finish within the time that I've been allocated. So thank you again, Mohsin and Lee and Payal and everybody else who was involved in that initiative. We did the Right for Peace, and then we had sorry, my finger just touched the thing. We also had a different, so a lot of these events were part of our Imagine Neighbors in Peace. I mean, Imagine Neighbors in Peace, which is the concept for most of the events up till now, up till this thing. And then I guess it's an underlying theme also. We did a country focus, and we are planning to do more country focus events, discussions. So we did a country focus on rebuilding Sri Lanka, reforms or revolution, because at that time, that's what the country was going through that. And Nalaka Gunawardene, who's a seasoned journalist, climate change, environmentalist, originally a science writer, who I've known for many years through Himal South Asian and Panos South Asia. So I would like to ask Nalaka, wonderful to see you here, to say a few words about that event, which I will just pull up very quickly on the screen just to show you who all was there. And it was all, and Nalaka insisted, and very rightly so, that we have young people there. And the closing remarks were given by Nirupama Subramanian, and Namrata Sharma in Nepal, I think, hosted that event. So it was really, we kept India and Pakistan out of it. So Nalaka, over to you for a few words.
Thank you, Beena. And it was an opportunity. Sapan gave us an opportunity to reflect on current and recent events in Sri Lanka. So last year, 2022, was a very turbulent time for Sri Lanka. It started with an economic crisis. Very quickly, it evolved into a socio-political crisis. This time last year was when this crisis was gathering pace. April to July was the peak of it. And we all know the news coverage of it, much of which, in my view, was superficial and fleeting. But there were sane, rational voices in Sri Lanka that were urging for reflection and for solutions. And this is what we wanted to showcase. So in early October last year, we had this wonderful panel discussion. And as Beena said, consciously we avoided bringing in the ones who had been very widely covered in the international media for sound bites. Instead, we accommodated very thoughtful, very well-informed mid-career professionals. So we had an economist, a political economist, and a journalist. Journalist is Marlon from Himal South Asian, who I think has joined today's meeting as well. And what we did, and
Marlon also, Nalaka, and sorry to interrupt, but just to add that also gave us the gift of Marlon, who of course I know was new from Himal, but I hadn't ever interacted with him before, and we're really happy that he's on the contributing editorial board of Sapan News that we launched and that we'll talk about later. So that really connected us with so many wonderful people as well, and gave us such an insight that you curated that event so thoughtfully, and it really gave a really good insight to everyone in the region about that.
Indeed. If I may just wrap up in
Yes.
1 minute, Beena. So what we tried to do was to go beyond the shrill and the rhetoric, because both on the political left and the right, there was so much polarizing as the political crisis unfolded, each pointing fingers at the other. So the debate was deadlocked between the right and left leaning political commentators. And also the discussion was, should we go for meaningful, deep, sustained reforms, or should we break down everything, demolish everything, the so-called revolutionary option? And many of us don't share that sentiment of breaking down everything. And instead, we acknowledge and agree that there should be serious, lasting reforms. So it was more in that frame that we discussed, and we agreed on the political, the economic, and other reforms that are needed, that simply have to be sustained, even though some feel it will be politically unpopular. And then, of course, at the end, Nirupama Subramanian, who's been watching and covering Sri Lanka for many, many years, gave us a wonderful summary, which brought our conversation into the larger context of the ethnic challenge and the ethnic reconciliation that we still need to work on. So all in all, I thought that was a very, very meaningful and reflective conversation.
Indeed it was, and we hope to have more such country focus conversations, kind of do deep dive, nuanced discussions on different countries of the region, with talking about polarizing things in a non-polarizing way. That dialogue is so important. So thank you again, Nalaka, and all those who participated in that event as well, and that discussion. So going forward, so beyond, so then we also had, beyond that, we had the Sapan Film Club, thanks to Ekta Kapoor, who has initiated this film club, where we showed Bani Singh's award-winning documentary Tang, which was really an amazing, so thoughtful and thought-provoking, about a former Olympian hockey player and his ties to his hometown where he grew up in Lahore, and people who joined this film club. So we made Ekta organized for the film to be made available to our viewers for 24 hours, our members for 24 hours, and then we had a discussion about it that was separate from our monthly discussions. And many people joined, including Sara Arshad in Lahore, who I mentioned earlier, who's a writer and a poet, and she got so moved by this that she has become a very core member of Sapan. And as I said before, you never know what can happen when you join a Sapan discussion. How you can get pulled in. We had more, Mridul and I already mentioned about the Streets for Life. We did a second edition of that. We did a really thoughtful one on discussion on Beyond Partitions, Shared Histories. It, again, a very nuanced, different way of looking beyond the binaries. It's not just one partition, it's multiple partitions with some really thoughtful young women who all, interestingly, whose names begin with A: Ananya, Jahanara Kabir, Anam Zakaria, and Anchal Malhotra. And this discussion was thoughtfully moderated by Priyanka Singh. And this was a really lovely discussion as well. I mean, I think that I can't think of which was my favorite discussion in Sapan, because I found them all so incredibly thought-provoking and, taking things forward. And then we've had, the interfaith collaboration, how it can contribute to climate justice. And that was thanks to Urmi Chanda, who curated that, Priyanka curated the partitions one. Different people have curated different specific discussions, while I've been the overall curator. Urmi Chanda in Mumbai brought a new angle to climate justice by saying that, since faith is such a powerful part of, important part of life in South Asia, why don't we get people who belong to different faiths to talk about how they can contribute to climate justice? And our last event was on celebrating love beyond borders and boundaries. And this was really a wonderful event as well. So just to go back to, can you see am I back to the slides now? Yeah. So some of you might be wondering why we use South Asia as one word, and that goes back to my roots with Himal South Asian, the language that Kanak had, I think, put in the editorial, seeking to restore why South Asia as one word, seeking to restore some of the historical unity of our common living space without wishing any violence on the existing nation states. And this is the quote, right side up map of South Asia. And Ekta was asking, why, what does right side up mean? And I said, well, we can talk about that later with Kanak. Then we have also the events that I showed earlier. Most of them have been covered. We started sending out press releases and then reports to a multitude of media outlets around. It started with 3 or 4 media outlets, and now there's, I don't know, I haven't counted, but there's multiple media outlets around the region and in the diaspora who have been covering Sapan events. And these also then became our partners, kind of, where we started sending them our write-ups as proper reports, not just as press releases. So that is what led to Sapan News syndicated features, which we will talk about later and that Ekta will present. Besides these media organizations, we also have, we have also the network, the 40 plus organizations that have endorsed the charter that Suraj mentioned earlier. So I'm not going to name them all, but this is just some of them, and they also are part of the Milne Do, or the Let Us Meet visa petition that Shailaja Rao will present a little bit later. In this network actually are some amazing people, and I'm just going to call, it's not possible to call on all of them, but I will call on a couple of people that we worked particularly closely with, and one of them is Padma, Dr. Padma in Boston. And she's with the Boston South Asia Coalition. So Padma, if you're there, if you can unmute yourself so that we can highlight you, and if you can say a few words. There you are, I see you, PB, hiding behind your PB.
Yes. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. It's indeed a pleasure and a privilege to be part of Sapan for more than a year now. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about Boston South Asian Coalition, but I've been a volunteer there for about 6 years now, and we work locally with organizations around racism, around police brutality, and also with Ambedkarite organizations in the area. And we work in solidarity with grassroots organizations in South Asia. It's largely been India for the last few years around various issues like the CAA, the discriminatory law, the farmers' struggles, the attacks against minorities, etc. But our aspirations are to be really South Asian, like Sapan. It's indeed, as I said, a privilege to work with Beena and all of you. I just want to mention a couple of events that we did together with Sapan, which really were appreciated by a lot of folks in the Boston area, and also on our social media, we got a lot of appreciation. I'll start with the most recent one, which was in December of 2022, which both Boston South Asian Coalition and Sapan organized on December 10th, the Human Rights Day, which was on journalists under attack. And we had our own Sapan activists and journalists who spoke. Anuradha Bhasin, from Kashmir,
who's also part of the South Asia Network, yeah.
Yes, and Namrata Sharma spoke, and we also had Sheikh Sabiha Alam, who's not part of Sapan, but a very well-known journalist from Bangladesh, and we had 2 other excellent journalists from the US who joined us, Kathy Keeley and Stephen Butler, and it was really extremely well received. And prior to that, we did on political prisoners. This is one of the areas where Boston South Asian Coalition and Sapan, we have intersecting interests. Kavita Srivastava, who does not need any introduction from Sapan, was the main speaker, along with Dr. Anand Teltumde, daughter today, and we organized it with Jericho in Boston, which works for the rights of political prisoners in the United States. So that again was an amazing event. And we, prior to that, we, thanks to Beena, we were introduced to Suraj Baratoki. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. And we had a very nice event where the noted journalist Kanakmani Dikshit, who's also part of Sapan, and Devendra Bhattarai, and the courageous lawyer from India, Aman Wadud from Assam, who has been fighting the discriminatory CAA and NRC speak. Again, that was in close collaboration with, folks from Sapan.
And actually, that reminds me, Padma, that we should, and Ekta and everyone, we should actually, when we do these kind of collaborations, we should put those. I had only put that Kabir one up. I had forgot. We just sort of haven't been that organized. We should have added those to our events as well. So going forward, we will definitely do that. I just realized when I was going through these events that we hadn't listed them on our event on our website, but we've been evolving and growing. So it's a work in progress. So we're not very organized, and we're getting better, I think, hopefully.
No,
so
thank you very much for this opportunity.
And I want to say that I really value the work that I've done with colleagues at Boston South Asia Coalition. Thanks to you guys, I got to speak at the Harvard Convocation last year that you were invited to speak at, and you nominated me because you were traveling. So that was really something. And thank you again. I think also, sorry, Padma, I didn't mean to cut you off. Was there anything else?
No, this is all I wanted to say. I just also want to say, at a personal level, being part of Sapan has really enhanced my understanding of history and what is happening now, because now is really important as well. Unless you have knowledge, you can't really do any kind of work. So they're very interlinked. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So another person that I wanted to call on, who's been mentioned already here, is our senior journalist friend from Nepal. No, Kanak, not you, because you've been missing in action. So we're going to ask Namrata Sharma to talk about, but not about Himal, but about what we call SOM Sisters, the South Asia Women in Media Network that Namrata and I are both part of. And there are several other people here who are part of that network. Mandira is part of that network, Lubna Jarar, and some others also who I don't see here. But that's how I got to know Namrata, was through SOM, the South Asia Women in Media. So Namrata, if you would like to say a few words about that collaboration, that would be wonderful. Oh yeah, Zara Nader is also here. She's also part of that. I'm going to ask her to speak in a minute from Afghanistan. Namrata.
Thank you, Beena. First of all, a very warm hug and greetings to the whole Sapan family and everybody who's joined us here today from Nepal. It's been a wonderful experience being part of both South Asian Women in Media Sisters Group and also Sapan. Actually, I got introduced to Sapan through SOM. SOM is a network of journalists, women in media from South Asia. And it's been about 15 years old now. And actually through that network, it's a network who focuses on press freedom and enhancement of the work of women in media in South Asia. And actually it now holds a whole group of excellent journalists from this region who network with each other in their work, life, fun, everything. But actually it has enhanced among the journalists who are in the network, the knowledge of everything in South Asia, including politics, climate, people, rights, and the need to network together. And through that network, actually, Beena and I discovered each other, although I definitely knew about Beena's work and everything. And it's so interesting. I didn't know about Sapan, but I have been part of, Kanak, Kunda, everybody, friends who have actually been part of starting the motivation.
But because Sapan hadn't really started, because Sapan only is 2 years old.
Exactly, and that surprises me, Beena. When I realized that we were actually celebrating 2 years of Sapan, when we started working. I thought you were at least more than a decade old, actually.
Oh,
Now
I'm more than many decades old, but in
yeah,
this
many
field, because,
decades old. Yeah.
so like
And
we,
you, now I say me also. And actually,
yes,
what I have learned from both the networks is that these networks are excellent. I haven't been that old in Swam either, but in Sapan, definitely almost the time when my father passed away. And
it was.
actually, it's just over a year. And so I have been with you more than with Sapan more than a year, and I feel part of it.
So,
And
so
a couple of
Namrata,
things to mention over here
sorry,
is
just to, not to interrupt, but just to say that, we connected because you wrote that very moving piece about your father after he passed, and I reached out to you personally, and that's how we then started talking and became friends.
absolutely.
And I just want to add one
Absolutely.
more thing about SOM, that it was actually the brainchild of Asma Jahangir. And I remember when she asked her daughter Munize to start it. Muniza Jahangir, who's a well-known journalist and is also part of the Sapan network, but very busy in her own journalistic ventures. So she's not that in front and center as much. So that's, I remember the very first meeting of SOM in Lahore many years ago, and it's grown into this, basically it's a WhatsApp group.
Yeah,
now.
and one of the most important thing that SWAM has done recently is documentation of women journalists' work. It's called Stories Without Boundaries. And the other thing, the network between Sapan and SWAM can be is now that our news, we have started that, SWAM has an excellent portal where so we carry stories by women journalists, you see. So any work in South Asia that is important, that's another forum to be shared with. And the other thing I really want to say before I end, Beena, is being part of Sapan has been so enriching for me. And actually, I feel so humble that I've been part of reading the In Memoriam, the Charter, and being part of these wonderful activities that we do, and I think it's lovely being part of this.
It's a wonderful network.
Yes.
Thank you, Namrata. Thank you so much. I'll call upon Azara Nadir now, who is also part of the SOM network, and I see her here. And we have never actually met. Yeah, there we go. You're there. Wonderful. So hello, Zara. Wonderful to actually see you. Wonderful to actually see you finally. And we've been talking on email, and I've shared with you the work that Sapan has done. So I wanted you to share some of your thoughts about it.
Thank you.
We're very happy to partner with Zan Times.
Thank you. First of all, I'm feeling very much honored to be in this network, in this group. And I want to thank you, Narmata, for making this possible. We talked, and then I was connected with South Asian Women in Media, which eventually led to us being here. My name is Zahra.
Sorry, I forgot to, sorry, Zara, I forgot to introduce you properly, that you're a journalist from Afghanistan, and you're currently at York University in Canada. Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to. Yeah, go ahead.
No worries at all. So we journalists are always good to speaking. Yeah. So that's our art. So I am a journalist from Afghanistan, and I'm running with a group of mostly women journalists, a media called Zan Times, and Zan means woman. And absolutely, this is our way of responding to what is happening in Afghanistan, and particularly to the situation of women. And when I was introduced to Sapan Network, it was very exciting for me to just really feel that there are areas that we can work in the region, because what's happening in Afghanistan will not remain in Afghanistan, and the countries that is going to be first affected is the countries in the region. For us to be able to have a place a platform that we can come together and talk about these issues, and finding solution is, I think, very much needed. And I really see the work that Sapan is doing as being able to create conversation about that, and also trying to respond to the crisis that's happening in the region. Particularly, I noticed that Sapan did a statement on the situation of Afghanistan, responding that what is happening in Afghanistan should not be normalized, and we should not accept normalization of the situation of women, and also the attacks on some communities, including my own community of Hazara and ethnic in Afghanistan, which have been under attack, and now particularly under the Taliban, and their situation is they are at risk. So for us to have that platform, to be able to speak to each other and also think through ways that we can respond to the situation is, I think, very, very much important. And I see Sapan as that progressive network that we think through many dangers. So one of them is particularly the Taliban in Afghanistan and the danger of religious extremists that are not only in Afghanistan, but in many other countries in South Asia. And I really see and feel privileged that for us as a media being able to involved in this network and also to be able to share our perspective of what's happening in Afghanistan and particularly to women, because Afghanistan is right now the only country on the planet that denies women the basic rights to education, to work. And today women in Afghanistan had a protest trying to just say that what's happening in Afghanistan, they need help. And I feel Sapan is a powerful network to come together in terms of solidarity, of really defining what it means to have a solidarity, to discuss the situation of women in the region and what is our way through, how we can pass through this situation. And I see being here as a part of creating that solidarity discussion and finding solution that would be applicable to our situation, that could help us walk through it and really see the situation of women and the crisis in Afghanistan, not only as a situation of Afghanistan, but as a problem for the entire region. Absolutely. That really need our urgent discussion, that really need us to be talking about it and finding solution for it. So Absolutely. I appreciate the possibility of being here and sharing my voice, and also for Zan Times to be part of Sapan is, I think, a privilege for us, an honor, and we are very happy to be included here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Zara. We're really happy and privileged to have you here along with some of our other Afghan sisters that we have. I just want to go back to the work that we've done at Sapan, which is more going a little bit further beyond the beyond what we just talked about, that we've also done these Sapan stories. We've also got a YouTube channel, which was part of Southasia Peace, but now it is under Sapan News. We have 2 interviews up already of Mani Shankar Iyer and Rafiq Katwari, the eminent poet from Kashmir, and Mani Shankar, of course, the parliamentarian from in India, and Lakshmi Pati Balaji, who had this interview with Nemal when we were going to do that South Asia, the sports one, which we never actually did because of COVID. So hopefully that Nemal will put that full interview of Balaji up at some point. Right now, a small snippet is up on our website, which is Sapan News now. And just a little bit about Southasia Peace. This is, we have, not, as you can see, not a huge number of followers and subscribers. So all of you who are here, each of you, if you can please help amplify our voice, Southasia Peace, on all social media platforms. On Instagram and LinkedIn, it has now become, if you go to Southasia Peace, it should take you to sapannews.com. And that actually takes me to the launch of our Sapan News website, which with the new social media handle Sapan News on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram, and Facebook and everything.